What's going on, guys? Boss6 here, back to another video, and today I have another edition of the Metal Month retrospective, and today I'm going over all 9 studio albums from American brutal tech death wizardry of Nile. Oh boy, this was certainly a discography to go through, and I didn't really know what one to do per se because after Merciful Fate, I'm like, well, I don't know who to do next. And then I was on my good buddy Levi, aka ThrashManiac99, on his live stream, and he suggested, why not do Nile? And I thought to myself, you know what? I am up for the challenge, and well, this wasn't necessarily a challenge. This was necessarily of, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. And lo and behold, it is. And this is kind of a unique band considering the themes that they go for. And instead of just like your typical death metal band that talks about blood, guts, and gore, this one talks about Egyptian themes. And yeah, it's going to be very interesting. So without wasting any time, let's get all into the 9 studio albums of Nile. So this band formed in Greenville, South Carolina in 1993 from a previous band, Moriah, which founding member and guitarist Carl Sanders had performed in the 80s. The names was taken from the Nile River, obviously, and released a self-titled thrash-influenced demo in 94, which would be reissued in 2011 under the title Worship the Animal. Now, Sanders and newly acquired vocalist and bassist Chief Spires and drummer Pete Hamara released Festivals of Atonement EP in 1985, leading Nile to a Midwestern tour with Deicide, Obituary, and Broken Hope. After the EP Ramses Bringer of War was released by Visceral Productions in 97, into the studio they went. On April 28th, 1998, we get their studio debut album, Amongst the Catacombs of Neferenka. So yeah, we get into their debut album, and this isn't what Nile would become later on. They wouldn't incorporate those technical elements yet. This is more straight ahead brutal death metal in the vein of Suffocation and maybe Pyrexia to a lesser extent. Now, as far as where I rank this number 6 overall, which to some Nile fans that may be a little bit questionable, but it'll get a little bit weirder as the discography goes on. I think in terms of debuts, this is a really, really, really good debut. But in terms of the Nile albums, it's a little bit lower on my list, only because I think there's better albums than this. But I really love the themes that it goes for. It's more straight ahead. It's in your face. The guitars are just absolutely visceral on this album. The drumming's insane. And Chief Spires, I think, is a really underrated vocalist in terms of death metal. And they're kind of planting the seeds where they'll be going for in the near future. Like songs like Serpent-Headed Mask, Smashing Antiu, Bara Edenazu, Ramsey Bring of War, Stones of Sorrow, huge standout for me. The first half I think is really damn good. Second half I don't think is as strong, but it's still pretty solid. And if you guys can't notice, I may be summoning some Egyptian demons in my room later tonight by saying these album titles. So, yay me, I guess. So no, this is a really solid offering. On Ramsey's Bringer of War, especially, I really love the intro to it. It kind of reminds me of Mortal Kombat in a way for some weird reason. So I kind of like it. It really gives that like epic, like arena fight like feel. So you know what you're going in for. So no, solo debut album, but not as a phenomenal Nile album, but still really damn good. So all in all, my number 6. So unfortunately, after this album was dropped, Visceral Productions would go out of business. But fortunately for the band, Relapse Records would swoop the band up and give the band a chance to go on tour with Incantation and Morbid Angel. Before the sophomore album would be released, people leave due to injuries and sustained on the tour. Intercession drummer Derek Roddy, and also around this time, guitarist and vocalist Dallas Toller Wade would join, and this would almost incorporate the classic era of Nile. So that being said, they go back to the recording studio on September 5th, 2000. We get their sophomore outing, Black Seeds of Vengeance. Okay, so I initially ranked this at number 8, but I ranked this at number 7. And this one may irk a couple Nile fans, like I said before. As a follow-up to Amongst the Catacombs of Nefertari, I don't think it's as strong because there's a couple things that didn't really click with me. One, production is still rough around the edges. I forgot to mention about the production on Amongst the Catacombs. It's still pretty raw and pretty rough, but they did the most what they were given. With this, the production still sounds a bit rough, and I don't think the songs were as much of a standout as Amongst the Catacombs. But you still got some really damn good stuff, like the title track's really good, Defiling the Gates of Ishtar, Multitude of Foes, Nas Ashan Khan Shi E Abzul. Again, I apologize for this. I mean, some of these even sound like German in my opinion, but Chapter for Transforming into a Snake, Masturbating the War God is a personal favorite of mine because I love that song title. This is a solid offering, but the big complaint I have with it, besides production, there's too many interludes and too many instrumentals on the sound for my liking. Like, I understand that we're trying to go for more ambience and more atmosphere, but it didn't really click in my opinion. I felt like they could have peppered in a little bit better for my liking. But still a solid offering, still a pretty solid sophomore outing, but not as great as a lot of people may say it is. So, my number 7, Black Seeds of Vengeance. So, a few months after Black Seed Avengers was released, Chief Spires would leave due to personal and professional differences, and he would be replaced by John Visano, and Rod would be replaced by Tony Laurino. So, a couple changes later, August 20th, 2002, they would release In Their Darkened Shrines. This is my number 8. Oh, man. I hate putting these a little bit lower because I know these are good albums, but it's kind of been a rough beginning for this band, particularly, of course, production-wise. Songwriting, this is where they start to incorporate those technical elements, but didn't fully blossom until a couple albums later. You get some good songs, though. There's some really damn good songs, like Expiration Text, Churning the Maelstrom, Winds of Horus, Sarcophagus, and my favorite track on the entire album, and the longest Nile song to date, the epic, almost 12-minute mastery of Unas, Slayer of the Gods. Just amazing, amazing stuff. That kind of has some proggy moments to it, if you think about it. And actually, fun fact, too, the videos for Sarcophagus and Extraction Text were actually done by Darren Doan, who, for those of you who are Blink 182 fans, he used the video filmographer for that. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. A guy that did Blink 182 is now doing stuff for Nile. What is going on in this world of metal? The big complaint I have with the album is that there's not a whole lot of stuff that grabs me. And not to mention, production is somehow a little bit worse. It sounds very, very, very thin in the mix. It just didn't have a big boost like they would have liked to have. And the In Their Darkened Shrines kind of quadrilogy, like the 4-parter that they had at the end of the album, it didn't really click with me. I know a lot of people say it's one of the best in their entire discography, but it just didn't do a whole lot for me. There's some good moments on it, but as a whole, it just didn't really click with me. So, all in all, it's my number 8. Sorry. So, before this next album dropped, Laurino would leave before the sessions began, and his replacement would be Greek drummer George Collis. And famed producer Neil Kernon would produce this new album. Yes, that Neil Kernon, who has done Judas Priest, to Neil Diamond, to Kansas, to Hall & Oates, to Cannibal Corpse, to Deicide. What? You want to talk about a producer who's produced one of the craziest discographies in this man's entire catalog. Like, this cat was doing R&B and funk to brutal death metal. I don't get it, in all honesty. It's kind of like, kind of like Coleridge in a way, where next thing you know, dude's doing Machine Head, next thing you know, he's doing Napalm Death. I don't get it. So, with those wild changes in the way, we get into their 4th studio album, which was released on May 23rd, 2005, Annihilation of the Wicked. This is my number 1. I don't think anybody would have really been shocked with it. This is why they were praised as the best Nile album, one of the best albums to come out in the 2000s, and yeah, it's not really hard to see why, folks. I said it before, they kind of incorporated the brutal and the technical elements brilliantly on this album. Like, it really mixed well, because on the other albums, they were flirting with it, but they didn't have the full-on connection with that. They connected perfectly here. And I will say, this contains some of the best songs in the band's entire catalog, like Cast Down Heretic, Sacrifice Unto Sabek, The Burning Pits of the Duet, title track, User Mat Ri, Chapter of Obscience Before Giving Breath to the Inherent One, and The Presence of the Crescent-Shaped Horns. That's a real song title, folks, and it's great. Lash to the Slave Stick, my personal favorite Nile song, and the epic 10-minute closer of Von an Asprechlecken Rutteln. It sounds like German, I swear to God. And I apologize if I butcher any of that. I really do apologize. But that's an awesome, awesome song as well. And another thing, too, Darren Doan would do the video for Sacrifice Unto Sabek. So there you go there. Yeah, this is just awesome. The band was firing on cylinders at this point, and just absolutely amazing stuff. My number one, Annihilation of the Wicked. So, after recording the bass parts for the album, Fasano would leave the band and be replaced by John Payne for the following tour. In May of 2006, they signed with Nuclear Blast Records, and they entered the recording studio in February of 2007. And a month later, they would be invited to Ozfest in 2007. So there you go there, because I think they wanted to do some more death metal bands there, and I'll not really complain with that. So on July 17th, 2007, they released Iffy Phallic. This one is my number 5. As a follow-up to Annihilation, it's good, but it doesn't feel like a proper follow-up. Like, it's a damn good album, but again, I kind of felt like it wasn't the big proper follow-up to Annihilation and the Wicked, because just some of the songs didn't really click, and production sounded a little bit weak, but it's still a damn good album. Like in terms of songwriting, I think it has some of the best Nile songs. Like, The Essential Salts is really good. As He Creates, So He Destroys. What Can Be Safely Written. The title track's one of my favorites. Language of the Shadows. But the huge standout to me is the longest song, the song title in Nile's entire career, and it's under 3 minutes. Papyrus containing the spell to protect... Let me repeat that. Papyrus containing the spell to preserve its possessor against attacks for who he is in the water. First of all, why? Second of all, that sounds like a D&D spell. And 3, I thought for some reason it was said platypus for some weird reason. Shut up, don't judge me. So, yeah, that long-ass song title is really damn good, despite it being a long-ass song title. So all in all, it's a good album, but it didn't feel like the proper follow-up to Annihilation of the Wicked, but still really damn good. My number 5. So from March to April of 2008, they went on a headlining tour in the States along with Suicide Silence, The Faceless, Unexpected, and Warbringer. From September to October of 2008, they went on a European tour with Grave, Onamong Gatherum, and Severe Torture. And later on that month, they went on an album tour in South Africa, but they got canceled for unknown reasons. But in June of 2009, they went into the recording studio and released on November 3rd, 2009, they released Those Whom the Gods Detest. This is my number 3. This feels like a proper follow-up to Annihilation and the Wicked. Whereas Iffy Phallic had that in spades, it didn't really capture the big vibe and the epicness, if you will, that Annihilation of the Wicked had. This does it absolutely proper, and I absolutely love the production, and I love the songs on this entire album. Like, excuse me, like Kafir, Hettet, Dung Incantation, Utterances of the Crawling Dead. The title track's really good. The Eye of Ra, Fourth Era of Dagon, not to be confused with the vocals of Inquisition. Kim Kafa Kivshe? Sure, why not? Iskender Dul Karan or Karnan. But one of my favorite tracks on the entire Nile discography, permitting permitting the noble dead to descend into the underworld. That's a really damn good track. I really, 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 really love that track in particular. So yeah, I love I love the more like ambience that they do on this album, and just the songs just kick so much ass, and it does feel like a proper follow up to Annihilation of the Wicked, in my personal opinion. So, damn good album. Really, really, really love it. My number three. So in October 2010, bassist Chris Lois would join after 4 years of session work, and in February 2012, Sanders would announce on Facebook they get a new bassist, Todd Ellis, though Sanders would play bass on the album. The next day, Sanders explained that the band had lost contact with Chris during the writing process, and that would happen to any band when they're on a big tour and all that stuff. So on June 29th, 2012, they were released At the Gate of Sathu. Well, unfortunately, somebody had to come in last, and unfortunately, this is it. This is my number 9. It's not that it's a bad album per se. It's just a very run-of-the-mill. It's a very Nile album. And it's not bad, but it just didn't feel like a follow-up to Those Whom the Gods Detest. It just feels like a band that just put out an album just to put out an album. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I just felt like it lacked something. Like I felt like something was missing here. But I will say this does contain some of the best Nile tracks, in my opinion. Like Enduring the Eternal Molestation of Flame, The Inevitable Degradation of Flesh, The Gods Who Light Up the Sky at the Gate of Sathu, Natural Liberation of Fear Through the Ritual Deception of Death, and Supreme Humanism of Megalomania. That's one of my personal favorite Nile tracks. But there's just nothing that really stands out. It doesn't really grab you. The more ambience and atmosphere that they put on this album just didn't really feel natural. It just felt kind of thrown together. And again, it's not bad. It just didn't feel. It just feels a little incomplete, if you ask me. And not to mention, production's pretty bad on this album. Like, production's a bit rough, in my opinion. Like, it just sounds a little thin in the mix. And it just didn't feel like the band was completely on board with this one. So, while not bad, it just didn't really click with me. So, unfortunately, it had to be my number 9. And a lot of people say it's their least favorite Nile album as well. So, I'm not alone in that camp here. So, on February 9th, 2015, Ellis would leave due to for unforeseen circumstances beyond my control, to quote him. And, well, a few months later, on August 28, 2015, they would release What Should Not Be on Earth. This is my number 2. A lot of people tend to put on the lower end of their list, and honestly, folks, I love this album. I fairly enjoy this record. I think what they kind of fumbled on At the Gate of Sathu, they got it right here. This feels like the proper follow-up to Those Whom the Gods Detest, where production got a little bit more, a lot more, like, bombastic, and they got a little more heavy. The drums sound absolutely awesome, and the songs got a lot more powerful and impactful, like Cult to Destruction, Liberal Stella Ruba, In the Name of Ammon, Evil to Cast Out Evil, Negating the Abominable Coals of the Epeh, the title track, Age of Famine, Rape of the Black Earth. This is a killer album, and I feel like it kind of gets. I kind of feel like it's a bit underrated in terms of Nile albums. Like, I just think the songwriting was great. They executed it a lot better than At the Gates of Sathu. And while there's not a whole lot of ambience and a lot of atmosphere on this album, it's still they still did what they did, and they made the best for it. And I think it really pulled off really well, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a damn good album, and I think it's one of the best in Nile's entire career. So it's my number two. So in the summer of 2016, the band took part of the Summer Slaughter Tour. After the tour, Dallas would unfortunately leave, prioritizing his duties to Necrotic Wasteland, and was replaced by Ethiopian vocalist and bassist Brian Kingsland. In May of 2017, new material would be worked on, and Brad Paris would play bass on the new album. So with a new vocalist and a new bassist, November 1st, 2019, we would get Vile Nilotic Rites. This is my number three. This was so close to being my number one, but I just like what should not be on Earth a little bit more than this. They finally brought back the epic atmosphere on this album. That's what it kind of felt like was lacking on a little bit of the albums beforehand. That big, bombastic, lush atmosphere, and I absolutely love it. Long Shadows of Dread. The title track is great. Revel Under Suffering, We Are Cursed, That Which Is Forbidden, Seven Horns of War, Snake Pit Meeting Frenzy, one of my favorite Nile tracks. Where's the Wrath of Sky has an awesome intro, where it kind of reminds me of Death's Flattening of Emotion in terms of the kick drum, or maybe to a lesser extent, weirdly, well, I don't really want to go that far. I was about to say Hot for Teacher by Van Halen, but I wouldn't go that far. But I really love the kick drum intro. It really reminds me of Flattening of Emotions by Death Off the Human, which, if you guys know me, that's my favorite death metal song. And the big standout to me is the Oxford Handbook of Savage Genocidal Warfare. That's an awesome song title, and that's a hell of a song. And the one track that didn't really click with me is the Imperishable Stars, or the Imperishable Stars. I just didn't really click with that. Like, it had a really nice riff, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me in the outset of things. So, yeah. Great album overall, though. It's my number three. So close to being my number two, but what should not be on Earth? Just beat it out just by a little bit. But still a damn good album, and a new era for the band is off to a great start, in my opinion. So in July of 2022, Sanders confirmed on working on a new album, and later October, they would require new bassist Julian Gillian, who would join them on their November-December European tour. And they're still touring to this day, and if we get a new album in 2024, you bet your sweet ass I'm going to be listening to it. So folks, that is it for my Nile ranking, and this is going to be the last band ranking I'm going to be doing for this year. Next year, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'll be putting up some polls on my community tab, and you guys will get to decide what band I will be reviewing and ranking next. So folks, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys leave a like, leave a comment. Tap that big subscribe button, tap the bell, so when I upload, you guys will be notified. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Most importantly, join the herd. Like us next video. Peace out.